In a dramatic show of power on a hot summer's day, the skies over Alaska became the stage for a high-stakes encounter. NORAD fighter jets from the US and Canada intercepted a formation of Chinese and Russian nuclear-capable bombers as they approached the Alaska Air Defense Identification Zone. This unprecedented joint flight by Beijing and Moscow signals a deepening military alliance, a willingness to test US resolve, and a concrete measure raising the stakes in an era of growing great power competition. It was a bold and even shocking sight, but it's a fair claim that the United States and its allies around the globe have not seen a threat quite like this in the North Pacific since World War II. Stay tuned as we dive into what this incident means for global security and the shifting balance of power. On July 24, 2024, a combined formation of two Russian Tu-95 Bear and two Chinese H-6 strategic bombers were tracked taking off from the same Russian base, a historical first, and flying through international airspace off the coast of Alaska. Violations of air defense identification zones are not uncommon due to the complex and often tense geopolitical relationships between countries, particularly in regions with disputed territories or strategic interests. Nations frequently test each other's air defense systems, engage in surveillance, or demonstrate military power by intentionally entering another country's ADIZ. In some cases, navigation errors or misidentifications have led to accidental incursions. The presence of overlapping claims, such as in the East China Sea, further contributes to the frequency of these violations, as countries assert their territorial interests and monitor potential threats. Despite their regularity, most ADIZ violations, like the one we recently saw near Alaska, are managed diplomatically to prevent escalation. This was not a surprise to us, noted Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin in a press conference held at the Pentagon in a response to the joint Russian-Chinese ADIZ violation near Alaska. Austin went on to emphasize that the event, in some respects, demonstrates the readiness of US and Canadian forces to respond to aerial threats. The incident, which marked the first time that aircraft from both Russia and China jointly approached US airspace, was closely monitored from start to finish, with American F-35 and F-16 fighters and Canadian CF-18 fighters successfully intercepting the foreign aircraft before they could even enter sovereign airspace. So if the threat was not a surprise, even expected by most American military experts, and did not technically violate American or Canadian sovereign airspace, why is it significant? Were the bomber crews testing Western resolve, trying to send a message? And if so, what might that have been? The crux of the issue here rests in the developing nature of the ongoing Sino-Russian military partnership and its ability to influence affairs across the globe. According to Jack Keane, a retired four-star American general, the reality is that China and Russia have established a strategic partnership, one, he claims, which has been enabled by North Korea and Iran. Labeling these nations the new Axis powers, Keane played up China and North Korea's ongoing investment in Russia's defense industrial base. But the fact that China is financing Iran's ability to furnish Hezbollah and Houthi militants with missiles and drones, and Iran's recent construction of a factory inside Russia to manufacture drones used in Ukraine. Taken together, a recent bipartisan congressional committee concluded this threat was something the United States had not seen since World War II. With war already underway in Europe, threatening to escalate in the Middle East, and a tenuous peace in the Indo-Pacific between China and Taiwan, Keane believes the bomber overflight was symbolic of an alignment of confident and aggressive foreign actors whose behavior could soon draw the United States into war on a global scale. In order to test the validity of Keane's claim, let's take a minute to review the military relationships between this new axis of nations as they stand today. You don't have to be an expert military analyst to recognize that the Sino-Russian military relationship hasn't exactly been smooth sailing in recent memory. Xi Jinping largely has the bellicosity of Vladimir Putin to thank for that. Whereas Beijing could once look at Russia as one of its most capable military partners, the bad optics of Putin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine has made China reluctant to fully endorse Russia's actions or provide substantial military assistance. Wary of becoming entangled in the conflict in a way that would provoke Western sanctions or damage its global economic interests, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has been a wake-up call for Beijing. The sheer scale of the global backlash, especially those crippling economic sanctions, has shown China just how costly an invasion could be. And let's not forget Ukraine's fierce resistance, backed by billions in Western military aid. This kind of unexpected challenge is making China's military brass rethink the whole Taiwan invasion scenario. But it's not just the fighting that's giving them pause. The West, particularly NATO, has shown them how quickly they can unite against a common enemy. If China moves on Taiwan, they could face a similarly powerful coalition in the Indo-Pacific. So while Beijing still has its eyes on Taiwan, Ukraine has taught them that the risks might be way higher than they ever anticipated. So while Russia's decision to continue its costly and destructive war in Ukraine has certainly given Chinese diplomats pause, the recent aerial incursion did not occur in a vacuum. Since 2022, the Sino-Russian military relationship has deepened significantly, marked by increased joint exercises, strategic cooperation, and shared opposition to Western influence. In September 2022, China participated in Russia's Vostok 2022 military exercises, a multinational affair that underscored the growing military collaboration between Beijing and Moscow. These exercises were significant, involving naval operations and demonstrating a shared interest in enhancing military readiness and interoperability. In November 2022, Chinese and Russian bombers conducted joint air patrols over the Sea of Japan and East China Sea, a sure sign of their willingness to challenge US and other allies' presence in the Indo-Pacific region. In 2023, this cooperation continued, with joint naval exercises in the Sea of Japan, further emphasizing their military alignment. Chinese financial support in Russia has not lacked either. Trade has surged between the two countries. In 2022, bilateral trade reached a record high of over $190 billion, with China becoming Russia's largest trading partner. This increase has been driven by China purchasing discounted Russian energy exports, including oil, coal, and natural gas, which have been shunned by many Western nations. By doing so, China has provided Russia with essential revenue streams that have helped sustain its economy amid its panoply of wartime sanctions. In addition to energy, China has also expanded its exports to Russia, supplying goods that are harder for Russia to source elsewhere due to the sanctions. This includes technology products such as microchips, electronics, and machinery. While many of these items are not explicitly military in nature, they are crucial for maintaining Russia's broader economic and technological base. Financially, China and Russia have been deepening their use of the yuan in trade settlements, reducing their reliance on the US dollar and creating a buffer against Western financial sanctions. This has included efforts to enhance the use of China's Union Pay system in Russia after Visa and MasterCard suspended operations there. However, China's support has clear limits. Beijing has avoided actions that would trigger secondary sanctions from the West or escalate tensions, such as providing direct military assistance or openly endorsing Russia's actions in Ukraine. This cautious approach reflects China's desire to maintain its economic ties with both Russia and the West, ensuring that it does not become a target of the same sanctions that have been imposed on Moscow. This all seems like pretty normal behavior for two aggressive regional powers. In themselves, tacit economic support, sporadic joint exercises, and a generally shared anti-Western stance between them does not a new axis make. Still, some might disagree. According to Dr. Alan Mendoza, Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society, a transatlantic foreign policy and national security think tank, the Axis-style relationship between China and Russia was actually crystallized in February 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine. Why? Well, days before the invasion itself, President Vladimir Putin visited his counterpart Xi Jinping in Beijing and declared the partnership between their countries as one which had no limits. Likewise, there were plenty of signs before the invasion that the ties between all four belligerent countries were strengthening. Back as early as 2019, Iran began staging trilateral naval exercises with Russia and China in the Arabian Sea on an annual basis. 2 years later, Iran signed a 25-year cooperation agreement with China. What this means is that China is essentially pledged $400 billion to stimulate Iran's economic development by offering significant windfalls to its energy, transport, and manufacturing sectors. It was a nice exchange for substantial quantities of Iranian oil sent the other way on the cheap. Around the same time, China finally granted Iran access to its Beidou navigation satellite system, a bid many analysts posited to improve their ability to share intelligence. Beijing has also been shoring up its military relationship with Pyongyang of late, though much of its deepening military cooperation has been marked by symbolic gestures of solidarity. One notable example is the resumption of military exchanges at the highest levels, which had been relatively dormant until recent years. In July 2021, Chinese President Xi Jinping and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un exchanged messages reaffirming their commitment to strengthening ties, particularly as both nations faced increasing pressure from the United States. This communication set the stage for more coordinated military activities, like a series of joint public displays of military strength. In July 2023, a high-ranking Chinese delegation, led by Li Hongzhong, attended North Korea's military parade, celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Korean War armistice. The presence of Chinese officials at such a significant event underscored Beijing's support for Pyongyang and sent a clear message of their military alignment to the international community. Moreover, China has reportedly provided North Korea with critical military assistance, albeit indirectly. This includes technological support that has likely contributed to North Korea's development of advanced missile capabilities. Although Beijing denies direct involvement in North Korea's weapons programs, the two countries' close military relationship suggests a level of cooperation that benefits Pyongyang's defense initiatives. North Korea's relationships with Russia have also gotten stronger. In June, Vladimir Putin traveling to Pyongyang in person for the first time in 2 decades. Having declared their intent to strengthen strategic interaction with Russia in a series of video conference calls, North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un used the occasion to sign a mutual defense agreement with Putin. For neighboring countries like South Korea and Japan, as well as NATO members in Eastern Europe, this alliance only heightens their existing security concerns. The prospect of enhanced military assistance between both authoritarian governments may be mere bluster, a deliberately vague attempt to resurrect a previous mutual defense pact between the Soviet Union and North Korea, penned in 1961. Yet such an agreement, made as it was between two unpredictable, autocratic leaders of nuclear nations, nevertheless raised concerns globally. Steven Sestanovich, a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, dismissed the signing of a comprehensive strategic partnership pact as little more than a great big thank you from Putin for Pyongyang's support for his war in Ukraine. Setbacks to Putin's special military operation have, more than anything, forced Russia to look to Kim Jong-un for artillery, ammunition, and arms. Pyongyang indeed continues to deliver the goods. As of early 2024, it's estimated that North Korea has shipped over 150,000 artillery shells to Russia. It's also provided Russia with around 1,000 multiple-launch short-range rocket systems, enhancing Russia's capacity for heavy bombardment. Russia has sent cheap oil, surplus weapons, and military expertise to improve North Korea's weapons of mass destruction program. Putin called the recent Mutual Assistance Pact a truly breakthrough document reflecting the desires of the two countries not to rest on their laurels, but to raise our relations to a new qualitative level. Once constrained from traveling to North Korea by dint of Russia's relationship with the UN Security Council and the broader international order, its newfound pariah status has only impelled the Russian autocrat to cast his lot more irrevocably with the world's rogues. Even if Putin claims it's part of building an anti-US world majority, notes Sestanovich, the result in Japan and South Korea, in virtually all countries that Russia used to treat as more important than North Korea, has to be a shock. He also adds that there's even likely some cringing within the Russian elite, asking themselves if they really want to be Kim Jong-un's dearest friend. Now, they may have no other choice. The new Russian-North Korean Mutual Assistance Pact broadly commits each country to assist the other if one happens to be attacked, much like NATO's famous Article 5 clause. Of course, with Ukraine's recent incursion into Kursk still festering like a troublesome boil on Putin's backside, it remains to be seen whether North Korea will act on its word and willingly escalate the conflict by actively sending combat troops into Russia, nor if Russia actually wants them to. As a side note, Pyongyang has for years actually been sending groups of mercenary soldiers abroad to earn hard cash, a military version of its guest worker program. More on that another time. More likely is that the pact, in the short term, leads to closer cooperation in weapons manufacturing, information exchange, and material aid, not explicit military support. What experts are less sure of is what the defense pact means for the broader set of regional alliances over the long-term strategic horizon. In Sestanovich's words, what's been promised in secret or will be promised over time. Kim has learned he's got Putin where he wants him. So don't be surprised if before the next delivery of artillery shells, North Korean officials say, we were wondering whether you could help us out with X or Y. Could that relationship draw Russia into uncharted territory vis-a-vis the United States? What of China, Iran? What is clear is that a strengthened alliance between Iran, China, Russia, and North Korea could have far-reaching destabilizing effects. Much like the inflation and energy price hikes caused by the Ukraine conflict and Houthi attacks, a unified bloc of these four powers could leverage their control over critical resources such as energy and rare materials, leading to skyrocketing energy prices and widespread inflation, exacerbating economic instability worldwide. With China's advanced cyber capabilities and North Korea's track record of cyber attacks, a broader alliance between them, Russia and Iran, could significantly increase cyber threats against critical infrastructure. This might include attacks on power grids, financial systems, and government databases. The risk of election interference and cyber espionage can and has destabilized democracies in the past, undermining trust in electoral processes and governance. There's the added possibility that a unified front by these four powers could obstruct international efforts to tackle global issues like climate change, preventing meaningful progress on collective global challenges and leading to stagnation in environmental and humanitarian efforts. It could also use its collective power to disrupt global access and supply chains, affecting everything from trade routes to resource distribution. This could exacerbate shortages, increase prices, and hinder global economic recovery. In short, there's a lot that can go wrong. That doesn't mean it necessarily will. Though individuals like US Senator Dan Sullivan labeled the recent overflight in the Alaskan ADIZ an escalation that represented a relatively substantial increase in military cooperation between both Russia and China, others believe the new axis of evil, as it's been called, is far from a unified threat. Yet 3 of the 4 countries have nuclear weapons, and Iran may be close, if not already in possession of its own. Yes, all 4 of these countries are today flush with cash, in complete autocratic control of their industrial bases, and continually provide each other with missiles, drones, and weapons to distribute to proxy militias or use against their neighbors. Others have argued that this new axis of autocracy, unholy alliance, or any other sobriquet for the burgeoning relationship between Iran, Russia, China, and North Korea is more bluster than baleful. To date, the only regularly cited example of trilateral military coordination in action, to say nothing of quadrilateral cooperation, is the annual 4-day Russian, Iranian, and Chinese naval exercises held in the Arabian Sea. These exercises have been described as largely performative, unlikely to increase trilateral interoperability in any meaningful way. Experts see no indication that these powers have been able to simulate a complex coordinated operation, but rather use the naval maneuvers to practice fairly standard tactical-level maritime exercise activities, firing at sea and the armed rescue of hijacked merchant vessels chief among them. In a potential conflict, we all know that Russia and Iran would not last long trying to project naval power in any direction. While these powers have collaborated militarily in the past, trying to build an effective quadrilateral axis would be extremely difficult in practice. Each state brings its own challenges to a concerted alliance. In Iran, for example, leaders are pushing for a broader security cooperation coalition than Russia and China seemingly feel comfortable with. A new member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Tehran, has postured itself as a state which, along with its allies, shares the responsibility for designing a new world order. Neither China nor Russia has since addressed Tehran's proposal to form a Shanghai Maritime Security Belt, a collective means of combating what Beijing has labeled the 3 evils: terrorism, separatism, and extremism. China is thus wary of Iran's bravado and its willingness to liken its relationship with Russia and China to a new NATO. Xi Jinping has been notoriously wary of tying his state's fate to the flagpole of 2 global pariahs, unwilling as he is to signal a full break with the United States. It simply has too much to lose. Russia, according to most experts, hasn't been unwilling to participate in a trilateral or quadrilateral axis, but has done its prospects of effectively doing so a massive disservice by invading Ukraine in February 2022. Today, Moscow is too overwhelmed to be a reliable partner. It cannot deliver promised fighter jets to Iran on time and has proven unwilling in the past to support Iran without reservation in its response to Israeli attacks on facilities and personnel in Syria. The limitations of the new axis extends into the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict. Despite shared rhetoric which echo Iran's critical stance on Israel and support for Hamas, neither Russia nor China has supported Hamas militarily and would be foolish to do so openly. So what ultimately do the latest series of bilateral mutual defense pacts, trilateral naval exercises, and joint military exercises mean for the coherence of a burgeoning new axis? While largely symbolic, these developments should not be written off as insignificant. The evolving alliance between North Korea, Russia, Iran, and China has the potential to seriously destabilize the globe in the coming weeks, months, and years. Their current relationship bears similarities to the alignment of autocratic powers in the early days of World War II, well before their formal alliance opened the door to their ultimate devastation. While this emerging axis in the East isn't yet as cohesive as NATO, it indicates a shift towards a new strategy of multilateral partnerships designed to challenge US influence and attract global allies. Recent trilateral naval exercises involving countries like Azerbaijan, India, and Pakistan illustrate their strategy of building a network of alternatives to the current international order. Instead of focusing solely on this quadrilateral dynamic, it's crucial to recognize this as part of a broader trend towards multipolarity and a challenge to the US-led international order. The real test of this alliance's depth will be if Iran's proposals for more structured military cooperation become a formal part of discussions between Moscow and Beijing. Should China, the most hesitant member, show openness to these proposals, a formal military alliance could be on the horizon. For now, the axis may seem uneven, but its potential to reshape global alignments remains significant. But what do you think? Is this new axis of evil a real threat to global stability, or is it more bluster than substance? Do you think these nations can truly challenge the US and its allies, or are they doomed to fail? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, thank you for watching. Now go and check out Russia's top nuke targets, or click this other video instead.